There's something almost magnetic about royalty. It doesn't matter where you live, what language you speak, or whether your country even has a king or queen. The moment royal drama erupts, the entire world stops and watches. Millions click, millions speculate, millions choose sides. And now, a new shockwave is rippling through the palace. Whispers that Charles has quietly begun shifting power, and that Catherine's stunning rise may have changed everything. But to understand why this moment feels so explosive, you first have to understand the obsession itself. Because this isn't just about crowns and titles. It's about symbolism. For centuries, the monarchy has represented stability, a living connection between the past and the present. Kings and queens weren't just leaders. They were myths made real, untouchable, unshakable. But in today's world, something has changed. The palace is no longer protected by silence. Every glance is analyzed. Every gesture is decoded. Every relationship becomes a headline. And perhaps most importantly, every shift in power becomes a global spectacle. What was once hidden behind palace walls now unfolds in real time, in front of billions. This is no longer just monarchy. This is monarchy under a microscope. And right now, all eyes are fixed on one woman, Catherine. Her rise hasn't just been steady. It's been transformational. From the moment she entered royal life, she carried herself differently. Calm, controlled, careful. She didn't demand attention. Attention came to her. Over time, public perception began to shift. Where once she was seen simply as a supportive figure, she slowly became something more. A symbol of continuity. A symbol of trust. A symbol of the monarchy's future. And with every public appearance, her influence grew stronger. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, dynamics were changing. Because in the royal world, influence isn't just about titles. It's about perception. It's about loyalty. It's about who the public believes represents the crown. And recently, something remarkable began happening. Crowds weren't just showing up. They were showing up for her. Her approval soared. Her presence reassured. Her image stabilized an institution that had been shaken by scandal, controversy, and internal fractures. And the palace noticed. Because the monarchy survives on one thing above all else: public belief. Without it, everything weakens. With it, everything strengthens. Which raises a chilling question. If Catherine represents the future, what does that mean for those who represent the past? And more importantly, what happens when the balance of power begins to shift, not through official announcements, but through public loyalty itself? Because insiders have begun noticing subtle changes. Subtle adjustments. Subtle signals. Signals that suggest Charles may be making decisions not just as a husband, but as a king. Decisions that could redefine everything. But to truly understand why this moment carries such weight, we need to go back to the moment royalty stopped being just rulers and became global celebrities. There was a time when royals existed in a world far removed from ordinary people. They lived behind gates, behind guards, behind silence. The public rarely heard their voices, rarely saw their true personalities, and almost never witnessed their private struggles. They were distant, untouchable, almost godlike. But then everything changed. The invention of television didn't just revolutionize entertainment. It revolutionized royalty. For the first time in history, people could see their monarchs move, speak, smile, hesitate. The crown was no longer just a symbol stamped on coins. It became human. And once that door opened, it never closed again. Suddenly, royal weddings weren't just ceremonies. They were global events. Millions tuned in to watch every detail, every dress, every glance, every moment. The monarchy had entered a new era. An era where visibility meant survival. But visibility came with a price. Because the more the public could see, the more they wanted to know. And curiosity quickly turned into obsession. Newspapers realized something powerful. Royal stories sold. Not just a little, but massively. Photos of royal couples walking together could sell millions of copies overnight. Rumors became headlines. Headlines became narratives. Narratives became reality. And slowly, the monarchy transformed into something no one had ever seen before. Not just a royal institution, but a global brand. Every royal became a character in a story the world couldn't stop following. The charming prince, the graceful princess, the loyal queen, the controversial outsider. Each role carried power, but also danger. Because once the public connects emotionally with a royal figure, they don't just observe them. They protect them. They defend them. They elevate them. And sometimes, they choose favorites. This is where everything becomes complicated. Because monarchy is supposed to be built on hierarchy. But public love doesn't follow hierarchy. Public love follows emotion. And emotion cannot be controlled. Over time, certain royals began to shine brighter than others. Not because of their titles, but because of how they made people feel. And that created a new kind of power. A power more dangerous than official authority. Popularity. Popularity can strengthen the crown. But it can also destabilize it. Because when one royal becomes more beloved than others, comparisons begin. Questions begin. Speculation begins. And sometimes, tension begins. The palace has always understood this risk. They've spent decades trying to carefully manage public perception. Every appearance choreographed. Every statement calculated. Every image intentional. Because perception is everything. And right now, perception is shifting again. Catherine's calm presence has created a sense of stability during uncertain times. She doesn't chase attention. She doesn't react emotionally. She represents something rare. Control. And in contrast, others within the royal circle have faced criticism, scrutiny, and controversy. Which makes Catherine's rise feel even more significant. Because in the modern royal era, popularity isn't just flattering. It's influential. It shapes the future. It shapes decisions. It shapes power. And perhaps most importantly, it shapes legacy. But this transformation didn't begin with Catherine. It began with someone else. Someone who didn't just capture attention. She captured hearts. Someone who changed the monarchy forever. Princess Diana. And once she arrived, nothing would ever be the same again. Before Diana, royalty was respected. After Diana, royalty was loved. And that single shift changed the monarchy forever. When Diana first appeared, she seemed almost unreal. Young, sad, gentle. She wasn't born into the center of royal power, yet somehow, she instantly belonged there. The world watched her closely. At first they saw a fairy tale. A young woman marrying a future king. A wedding broadcast across continents. Crowds cheering. Smiles everywhere. It looked perfect. But perfection can be an illusion. Because behind the scenes, Diana was stepping into a world that demanded silence, emotional control, and sacrifice. And Diana was different. She didn't hide her emotions. She didn't pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. She showed vulnerability. And that vulnerability made her human. For the first time, people didn't just admire a royal. They related to one. They saw her pain. They saw her loneliness. They saw her strength. And they connected with her in a way that had never happened before. She wasn't just a princess. She became the people's princess. Everywhere she went, crowds gathered. Not out of duty, but out of love. She shook hands others wouldn't. She hugged those who were ignored. She broke royal traditions, not out of rebellion but out of compassion. And the public noticed. They didn't just see a royal figure. They saw someone real. But that love came with consequences. Because popularity inside the monarchy is complicated. The more the public adored Diana, the more the internal balance began to shift. She wasn't just representing the crown anymore. She was redefining it. And redefining something that old, something that powerful, is never easy. The media followed her relentlessly. Every movement documented. Every expression analyzed. Every private moment hunted. She became the most photographed woman in the world. But the cameras didn't just capture her beauty. They captured her pain. Her struggles became public. Her marriage became a global story. And suddenly the fairy tale had cracks. The palace faced a situation it had never encountered before. A royal who belonged more to the people than to the institution itself. This changed everything. Because Diana proved something powerful. Public love could rival royal protocol. Public connection could rival royal hierarchy. And once that door opened, it could never be closed again. Even after her tragic death, her influence didn't fade. It grew. She became more than a person. She became a symbol. A symbol of emotional authenticity inside a system built on emotional restraint. And perhaps most importantly, she reshaped the expectations placed on future royals. The public no longer wanted distant figures. They wanted connection. They wanted authenticity. They wanted someone they could believe in. And years later, someone would emerge who reminded the world of that feeling again. Calm, graceful, relatable. Catherine. But Diana's legacy didn't just influence Catherine. It also influenced another royal whose arrival would trigger one of the biggest shocks in modern royal history. At first, it felt like a new beginning. When Prince Harry introduced Meghan to the world, there was excitement. Real excitement. Not just inside the United Kingdom but across the globe. She was different. An outsider. An American actress stepping into one of the oldest royal institutions on Earth. It felt modern. It felt bold. It felt like evolution. Millions believed this was exactly what the monarchy needed. A fresh face, a new energy, a bridge between tradition and the modern world. Their wedding was watched by millions. Smiles filled the screens. Hope filled the air. It looked like the monarchy had found its next powerful chapter. But behind the scenes, cracks were already forming. Because entering the royal family isn't just about love. It's about adaptation. It's about sacrifice. It's about surrendering parts of your personal freedom for the sake of the institution. And that adjustment can be overwhelming. At first, Meghan appeared confident and composed. But slowly, subtle tensions began to surface. Small things. Body language. Public interactions. Moments that observers began to analyze frame by frame. Then came the headlines. Rumors of disagreements. Rumors of internal conflicts. Rumors of emotional strain. The media began drawing comparisons. Meghan versus Catherine. Two women. Two very different paths. Two very different public perceptions. Catherine represented stability. Continuity. Calm. Meghan represented disruption. Change. Uncertainty. The public began to choose sides. Some admired Meghan's independence. Others trusted Catherine's quiet strength. And within the palace, the pressure intensified. Because the monarchy survives on unity. And division is dangerous. Then came the moment that stunned the world. Harry and Meghan stepped back. Not gradually. Not quietly. But suddenly. They walked away from their roles as senior royals. It wasn't just a personal decision. It was a historic rupture. An event that forced the monarchy to confront a future no one had fully prepared for. The fallout was immediate. Questions flooded in. What did this mean for the monarchy's stability? What did this mean for Charles? What did this mean for William? And perhaps most importantly, what did this mean for Catherine? Because with Harry gone, something unexpected happened. The spotlight shifted. Not slowly, but instantly. William and Catherine were no longer just part of the monarchy's future. They became its center. Its foundation. Its hope. And Catherine stepped into that role with remarkable control. No emotional outbursts. No public complaints. No visible cracks. Only composure. Only consistency. Only strength. And the public responded. Her popularity grew stronger than ever. Her presence reassured millions. She became more than a princess. She became a symbol of stability during chaos. And as her influence grew, so did speculation. Because influence inside the monarchy doesn't go unnoticed. Especially by the king. Charles had waited his entire life to wear the crown. He understood better than anyone how fragile public support could be. He understood how quickly perception could shape legacy. And now, standing before him, was a future queen who had quietly become one of the monarchy's most powerful assets. Which raises a chilling question. If Catherine represents the monarchy's strongest future, what difficult decisions might be made in the present to protect it? Because behind palace walls, power doesn't always shift loudly. Sometimes, it shifts in silence. A shock that would fracture relationships, divide public opinion, and shake the palace to its core. Harry and Meghan. The public sees the smiles, the waves, the perfect images. But the real monarchy exists far away from cameras, behind walls the world will never fully see. And inside those walls, everything is strategy. Every appearance, every announcement, every title. Nothing is accidental. Because the monarchy isn't just a family. It's an institution designed to survive. And survival sometimes requires difficult, even painful, decisions. King Charles understood this long before he ever wore the crown. He spent decades preparing, watching how public perception could elevate a royal, or quietly weaken them. He saw it happen during his own life. He saw how public opinion could transform someone into a beloved icon, or turn them into a controversial figure overnight. And now, as king, his responsibility is no longer personal. It's institutional. His duty is to protect the monarchy itself, even if it requires reshaping its future, even if it requires redefining roles, even if it requires shifting influence in ways the public may never officially hear about. Because power inside the palace doesn't always move through announcements. It moves through symbolism, through visibility, through presence. And recently, observers have noticed something subtle, something quiet, but significant. Catherine's presence has grown stronger, not just in frequency, but in importance. She's appearing at key events, standing at the center of major royal moments, representing stability, representing continuity, representing the future. And the public has embraced her in a way that few royals experience. Her approval remains remarkably strong. Her image remains remarkably consistent. She has become one of the monarchy's greatest strengths. And Charles knows this, because a monarchy cannot survive on tradition alone. It must also survive on trust, public trust. And Catherine brings that trust effortlessly. But this rise naturally creates questions. Questions about hierarchy. Questions about influence. Questions about the balance between past and future. Because in every monarchy there is always a transition period. A moment where the old guard slowly gives way to the new. Not through conflict, but through inevitability. Camilla holds her position. She carries her title. She fulfills her role. But Catherine represents something different. She represents longevity. She represents the next generation. She represents the monarchy's survival decades from now. And Charles as king must think not in years, but in generations. Every decision he makes is measured against one question. Will this strengthen the crown long after he's gone? Which means his focus isn't just on the present. It's on the future. A future where William will become king. A future where Catherine will become queen. A future the public already seems emotionally invested in. This creates a delicate balance. Because the monarchy must honor its present, while preparing for its future. And sometimes that preparation happens quietly. Without statements. Without headlines. Without confirmation. But the signals are there for those watching closely. The increased visibility. The strategic positioning. The growing influence. It all points to one undeniable truth. The monarchy is evolving again. And Catherine stands at the center of that evolution. But evolution inside the monarchy doesn't happen in isolation. It happens under the constant pressure of an even greater force. The media. Because the media doesn't just observe royal change. It accelerates it.